I bought this Schecter all the way back in 2014. And back then I didn't know just how important this guitar would turn out to be. First of all, because it's a huge inspiration. It's a guitar for Synyster Gates from Avenged Sevenfold, one of my favorite guitarists. And second of all, this particular guitar is the reason I started with the YouTube channel. In this video I'm gonna tell you the story of how this channel came to be because of this particular Schecter.
First, I'd like to just talk a little bit about practicing, because as of recent, I really got back into practicing a bunch of new stuff and just kind of getting your head out of your own ass with touring and all that kind of stuff, you know, and having a moment to breathe. Away from Avenged Sevenfold, you come and sit at home for a little bit. You're like, oh my God, I play guitar. It's not just about this or that. So I started playing a lot. And it really gave me a renaissance to my passion for guitar. And I just started taking a look at all these guys doing a bunch of different crazy shit.
Speaking of practice, before you continue with my video, make sure you check out Synyster's official website. It is an amazing online guitar course. Most of the classes are taught by Brian Hanner Sr. This is Synyster's father and is also his teacher. So we got the schools for beginners, intermediate, advanced, and if you're feeling like a professional, you can try some of Syn's lessons, which are actually crazy. Check this out, it has the tabs and everything. Make sure you visit Synyster's website. There are 4 guitars that I can point out as my biggest inspiration for playing guitar. First, of course, James Hetfield from Metallica, then Slash, Matt Heafy from Trivium, and Synyster Gates from Avenged Sevenfold. When I bought this guitar back in 2014, I was pretty new to guitar playing. It took me like a month to do a guitar cover for Avenged Sevenfold's Chapter 4. I will include links to the covers that I did with this Schecter in my video. And I remember back then it was really hard to do these covers. My guitar playing was not that good. It took me days to learn a single riff properly. But I had a couple of advantages. I already knew how to edit a decent video. Obviously I had the perfect guitar for an Avenged Sevenfold cover. I had what was considered one of the best guitar processors back then, the Fractal Audio Axe-FX 2 XL Plus. I knew that Synyster was using Bogner-Uberschall amps to get his sound, so I used those in the Fractal and it came out pretty close. I own a couple of Bogner-Uberschall amps now, so I can confirm that with certainty. What's funny is that back then people were accusing me for not actually playing the guitar, for using just the backup track, so I had to include guitar tracks in SoundCloud to prove that I'm playing. So long story short, this guitar did the trick and the covers came out decent. A year later, in 2015, I started working in the guitar shop that I work now, Music Division, and I stopped doing guitar covers. Not that I did many, but I did a couple. I think around 2018 I sold the Synyster Custom-S to a friend of mine. Mainly because it's a guitar that has a Floyd Rose and I'm not a big fan of those. I'm a huge fan of Synyster, but I don't play that much lead, I'm a rhythm guitar player. My friend still owns this guitar and he gave it to me for the review, and he's a pretty big Synyster fan. He actually looks like Synyster. So I agreed to sell him the guitar, but I ended up missing it and I bought another one. I think it was around the end of 2019, I was missing my old one so much that I bought the newer version. which had a couple of differences. First of all, it was ebony fingerboard, but it was considerably browner, as you can see on the photo. The pickups are no longer Seymour Duncan Invader, they are specifically made for Synyster. The bridge was also different, it was no longer the Floyd Rose 1000, it was the newer version, the 1500 with the steel bolts. I am gonna review that guitar a little bit later on, and I promise I'm gonna tell you a lot more about Synyster in that video. I'm also gonna explain the differences between the two guitars. For now I can give you two clips that I recorded with a phone back then when I had both of them in the shop. Even recorded through a phone, I can hear quite a difference, and I seem to prefer the mids on the Seymour Duncan Invader. Back to the story, I sold both my Schecters and I want another one, so I'm gonna buy one again and review it. After having sold both of my Schecters in the beginning of 2021, I was wondering what to do with my life. And I thought, why not do guitar reviews? I already have most of the gear. I just needed a couple of cameras and to figure out how to get my channel monetized. You need views, watch hours and subscribers for that. Luckily, I decided to check out how my videos are doing and how my channel is doing up to this moment, and found out that my previous videos, the covers that I did back in 2014, are doing pretty good, especially the Avenged Sevenfold Unholy Confession and the Chapter 4 video. Almost 700k is a pretty good number for such a small channel like mine. And it's still doing well, it's performing good, so this particular video of Unholy Confessions, the cover with this guitar, is what got me monetized. In the beginning of the year I had 2000 subscribers, I had the views needed, I had the watch hours needed. All thanks to this Schecter Synyster Custom-S that I'm gonna show you today. So that's the story how this particular Schecter got my YouTube channel started. So what we have here is a mahogany body, multiple pieces, mahogany neck with a set neck construction, ebony fingerboard, 24 extra jumbo frets, 16-inch radius. You get a pretty good access to the high frets on this one, and 25.5-inch scale length. Grover Rotomatic 18:1 ratio tuners and a locking nut for the Floyd Rose. Sustain-Jack in the neck, I already did a video on this. Seymour Duncan Synyster signature pickup in the bridge. Floyd Rose 1000 series, a 3-way switch, volume, tone and the controls for the Sustain-Jack. Watch that video. Here is what's under the pickups. The neck joint was covered by additional piece of wood. I've seen this on other guitars. There's also gloss paint in here. Not much else to see other than the routing for the cable for the Sustain-Jack. And this is the bridge pickup cavity. I see there's shielding paint, so there's no shielding paint needed for the Sustain-Jack, but for the Seymour Duncan it's there. This is what the Sustain-Jack looks like, same as on the Schecter Synyster that I reviewed. It's pretty much a single coil pickup, nothing under here, this is just a cover. It's purely aesthetic and it has a plastic bottom when it has the sticker. Made in USA. I've explained the Sustain-Jack in my Schecter Synyster signature video. As I already mentioned, I'm gonna link it above for you to check out. Then there's the good stuff. In the bridge position we have the Seymour Duncan Synyster Invader. So it's not just your typical Invader, this one is particularly made for the Schecter Synyster. It was made in March 2014, the same year as the guitar, made in America of course. What makes it different from the regular Invaders are the caps on top of the magnets and the screws. It's pretty easy to recognize. When you see it, you immediately know this is the Synyster Seymour Duncan Invader. This is a flat body, so are the pickup rings. The bridge one is a little bit higher, so we got short screws for the front, long screws for the back. Measuring the Seymour Duncan Invader, it's pretty hot at 1673 k ohms. Now switching over to the single coil Sustainiac, which is still pretty hot at 7071, but this is not a regular pickup, remember. Both are 1673. But keep in mind, even though this measures hot, the Sustainiac measures hot, it still sounds and plays like a single coil pickup when you're not using the Sustainiac system. However, if you decide to engage the Sustainiac and you switch over to that pickup, the Sustainiac pickup, you see it's not affecting the readings of the bridge pickup, and you get all sorts of messed up readings for the neck when it's switched on. Switching it off, it will return to our normal readings. Now the controls for the Sustainiac are still the same in 2021 when I reviewed the Kenny Hickey. This is the on-off switch. Back is off, front is on, and this is the mode selector. It switches between fundamental, which is just your infinite sustain of the note that you're currently playing. Mix, this is between fundamental and harmonic. And the last one that I'm using in this review, the harmonic mode. Pretty much takes the note that you're playing and directly goes to harmonic. The controls are master volume, master tone, and a three-way switch. This particular three-way switch was replaced because it was malfunctioning. It's an old guitar now. The bridge, you probably noticed that I've blocked with a 9-volt battery. This way it's easier to restring the guitar. And I suggest that every time you remove all 6 strings on a Floyd Rose guitar, you put a 9-volt battery underneath the bridge like this. By doing so, the Floyd Rose bridge stays level to the body and it's much easier to put on the new strings. In this particular case, I have to do a new setup because I'm changing the string gauge. This guitar needs to go half step down, so if I was using the old gauge, the setup would have been faster. The 1000 series all black bridge was replaced with the new model 1500 that has the steel bolts and some steel appointments that looks a little bit different. Here's what the trem arm for the 1000 series looks like. The design changed for the 1500. This one you screw on to the bridge and you can tighten it to the desired position that you want. You can make it move around or you can tighten it in place like this. The new model, you just stick it in without any screwing. Yeah, that's what she said. The body shape of the Synyster was borrowed from the blackjack that you can see in Bad Country, the video for it. Pretty identical as you can see. The headstock is different obviously, they've changed it for the Synyster Custom. Synyster used to play a Les Paul Custom that you can see in the chapter 4 video, and what's funny is that if you look at this solo, he's playing without the cable. Yeah, that's normal, but he also doesn't have a Floyd Rose for this particular guitar. It's a hardtail. So the Floyd came later. So here it is, the body of the blackjack and the added headstock. There has been a lot of models now throughout the years and a lot of colors, especially for the new ones. They're quite different. They're not with the gloss finish, they have other finishes now. But this back then used to come in 2 main colors, the black and gold and black and silver stripes. There were some other cool finishes like the purple and green, like the black and red, that I'm gonna try and review for you guys when I find them. I remember when I bought this guitar, I was a little bit bummed because I bought it online and when it arrived I saw this little crack in the polyurethane finish. This was on the guitar when I bought it, it didn't happen later. But it's purely cosmetic and doesn't matter. I noticed now that the bridge pickup ring is installed a little bit crooked and it's because of the stripes it's easy to notice. Other than that, I don't see any major issues. It is a flat top, which is pretty comfortable, especially for Synyster's double hand tapping techniques. And the neck has a set neck construction, 3 pieces of mahogany with carbon reinforcement rods. It has a beautiful dark ebony fingerboard on it, 24 extra jumbo frets, 16-inch radius, pretty flat, good for the double hand tapping and all the techniques that Synyster uses in his soloing. Has these beautiful pearloid inlays and 25.5-inch scale length. You may not notice, but the body and the neck has black binding, pearloid dot inlays for the side of the neck, and the inlays of the fingerboard, which are pretty distinctive, especially with the Syn name on it, and the dead bat, they are made out of pearloid as well. These are not mother of pearl, but they look pretty cool in person. Floyd Rose 1000 series locking nut to accompany the bridge, and these are the blocks that press on the strings and keep them locked. This is a string retainer that helps with tuning stability. Black headstock with the silver stripes, same as the body, and I love how they used different colors for the letters because they're overlapping with the stripes. You see the S and the R are black because if they did them with silver, they wouldn't be visible, would they? And this particular model has the skull with top hat logo, which was later replaced by a pentagram for Synyster's later models. Two-way adjustable truss rod with the Allen nut, and the cover for it, Synyster Custom-S, the model 2-ply, gloss, black and white. The nut is 41.8mm wide or 1.64 inch. The 12th fret is at 53.5 or 2.10 inches. Thickness of the neck at the first fret 20.8mm or 0.81 inch. Thickness of the 12th fret 22.5mm, 0.88 inch. The thickness of the body relatively thick at 46mm or 1.81 inch, and this is a flat top, remember. Here's that flat shreddy radius, 406mm or 16 inches. Combine that with the 24 extra jumbo frets and the 25.5 inch scale length and you get a shred machine. According to the official specs, this is a ultra thin C, and I agree, it's rounded off, feels pretty comfortable and like home for me. It's pretty close to the Gibson Les Paul custom specs, and that's no surprise because Synyster, before using the Schecters, was using a Gibson Les Paul custom that you can see in the chapter 4 video. And look at that, a volute, so no wonder this was comfortable to me back then. However, it has a Floyd Rose, different scale length, so that's why it didn't stick with me. I like Les Pauls. I'm gonna leave this one to the shredders. Here's the back of the guitar, and there's a lot going on here, starting with the back of the Floyd mechanism. Here's the block, the insert for the tremolo arm, two huge screws holding the plate that adjust the tension of the springs. On it there's a ground wire that goes to the electronics, 3 spring setup, pretty typical. Then there's the electronics compartment itself, which is shielded, has Alpha 500K pots for the volume and tone, a 3-way switch that I've replaced, and this is the Sustainiac, or at least the motherboard that controls the driver. Made in USA, revision 5.5, the Schecter Kenny Hickey has the revision 6, so they haven't moved on too far from this one. The Sustainiac of course needs a 9V battery to work, and here's the compartment for it. You can play the guitar without the battery, but without the battery it's not gonna have the infinite sustain of the driver and the 3 modes. That's pretty much it for the electronics. We have a huge belly cutaway here on the body and a cutaway for high fret access. There's the output jack with an oval black plate and a nickel nut. Original strap buttons, one here near the back and one on the top horn, which is pretty nicely placed and gives you a good balance with the strap. Here's the cover for the springs of the Floyd Rose, and I'm gonna be putting it on. I see it's shielded from the back side and satin on the front. It's oriented like this, and the cool thing about it is you can adjust the spring tension without having to remove it. I've seen some early models of guitars with the Floyd that didn't have these holes, and it was a pain every time you had to unscrew and remove this cover. Here's this huge boomerang cover for the electronics compartment. It has shielding on the back side, satin on the front, and you can see that a huge piece of the body is missing in order to fit the Sustainiac and the electronics. I see a couple of seam lines for the body which are a little bit hard to demonstrate on camera. One is here and the other one is supposed to be somewhere around here, so this is at least 3 pieces of mahogany for the body. The neck is also made out of 3 pieces of mahogany with carbon reinforcement rods, gloss finish and a volute near the headstock, which is pretty comfortable for me. I love this feature on my Norlin era Les Paul custom Gibson from '76, and I miss it on a lot of other guitars. Near the headstock there's the serial number starting with W14. It is the World Musical Instrument Factory in South Korea. HGR stands for Schecter Guitar Research. 1404, this was made in April of 2014, a month later than the Seymour Duncan pickup. It has Synyster's signature back here and the Grover Automatic 18:1 ratio black tuners. I'm gonna show you and measure one of these guys now. Has 4 marked on the back of it, and see, I'm not actually sure where this one was made. Doesn't really matter, it's substantial enough, feels heavy. Now let's weigh it. The whole thing with the nut and screw, 36. Yeah, this is pretty good. This is a decent tuner and it's supposed to hold in tune, especially with the locking nut and all. This particular guitar was using 1046 in drop D, and I did the demo with 1046 in drop D. But my friend wants me to do a new setup on this guitar in drop C sharp, which means that I have to drop it an additional half step down. So I'm using the 1052 by Ernie Ball with the heavy bottoms, which will hold up pretty nice in C sharp. A couple of advices: when you remove the strings, tighten these screws not too hard, so your blocks, the blocks that are pressing on the strings, don't fall off from the bridge while you're turning around the guitar. Once again, don't use too much force when you're tightening these screws because the blocks crack pretty easy. They are sold separately, I had them in the store that I work in, but anyway, be careful not to lose or crack them. When putting on strings, you can do it two ways. You can insert this end or cut the bow end. But make sure you cut the string after the wounds, not before them. I usually cut the bow ends and use this end of the string starting from here. I've seen a lot of people cut too soon, like here near the bow end with the winds, and then try to insert it, and the block simply doesn't want to hold. So make sure you properly cut the string before inserting it in here. Otherwise it will not hold and properly pop out. Here, see how I've cut it? After inserting all 6 strings, I've tuned the guitar to the drop C sharp tuning that I wanted, and you can see that the bridge has already moved because of the higher tension of the 1056 strings. Now I can remove the 9V battery using the trem arm. Now that the battery is no longer back there, the fine tuners are no longer obstructed, and I've aligned them so they have enough movement to go down and fine tune all of the strings. Now, to compensate for the higher tension of the new strings, I'm gonna tighten these 2 screws, putting some more tension on the springs from the back, which balance the string tension. I rotate both screws equally to maintain the balance. It's a back and forth process between tuning the tuners and adjusting the springs. The end goal is to adjust the bridge in such a way that it's level to the body. You see the float? It's absolutely level with the body. I've put on the strings and the clamps on the locking nut, but I'm not gonna lock it just yet because the strings are brand new. They have to loosen a bit to get settled. So I'm gonna wait for a couple of days and then lock them to get that perfect tuning stability. This is the string retainer. It does a very important job to press down on your strings so they catch exactly here on the ledge of the nut. This way there's no more give on the string, so when you clamp it with the clamp, it will not go out of pitch. Last but not least, after I make sure the string height is properly set, the nut is locked, I'm gonna use the fine tuners to precisely tune to the desired note. Make sure you're properly tuned before locking and using the fine tuners though. Most Synysters are offered without a case, so I had to order this Schecter Guitar Research Universal case, which fits a lot of the Super Strats. It has 3 latches, black plastic, and some of them bent with time, so watch out for this. It's a pretty nice case, and I think the Synyster fits in it pretty well with this blue lining. In here we have the Allen wrench to unlock the bridge and the nut, the tremolo arm for the 1000 Floyd Rose series, and the original 3-way switch, which I've replaced, the key for the case, one of the latches locks, and this Schecter Guitar Research label that came with the guitar. 3.5, 3.6, not too good, not too terrible. It's not a heavy guitar, it's not light, it's perfectly balanced. Oh man, I love this thing. I love all the Synyster signatures. Unfortunately, I'm not into lead guitar playing and shred, and I don't like Floyd bridges, so these don't stick with me too much like the Les Paul custom Gibsons that I have. But I will always want to have one of these around, so I will probably go for one of the new ones with the satin finish, or I will find a white one. Now, is it a good guitar? Yeah, it definitely is. Plays amazing, sounds great, and it stays in tune. And it's a Synyster Custom, man. Look at it, he uses these on stage. As I already mentioned, I think I prefer the Seymour Duncan Invader pickup over the new ones that Synyster has. But that's a matter of personal preference. I'm gonna do a proper comparison between this one and probably one of the new ones eventually when I get one. So look forward to that. I'm glad I finally did a proper video review for this particular Schecter because it's what got me into YouTube. This was the guitar that I made my first YouTube covers with it, and it got my channel directly monetized. Now it belongs to a friend who loves it, and I hope you play it a lot, man.